A hike through the woods is one of the best ways to enjoy the outdoors. But if you go in the fall when the air is crisp and the leaves are colored, it also brings about the added excitement and danger of the hunting season. But despite what may seem like people just out shooting guns and destroying wildlife, most hunters are actually environmental conservationists.
It's really kind of too bad that a lot of the negative stereotyping has emerged around hunting because some of our most respected conservationists here in the United States, from President Teddy Roosevelt to Aldo Leopold, who wrote the St. County Almanac, real pioneers in terms of thinking about conservation and how we manage land and resources, were hunters.
Maine has the highest percentage of hunters in the New England area, and most hunters care deeply about nature and the environment, because without it, their livelihoods would go as well. And even if hunters are not self-proclaimed environmentalists, every hunter is still directly responsible for protecting native habitats. Natural areas such as this one in Maine's 100-mile wilderness have hunting dollars to thank for its preservation. That's because the money spent on hunting licenses and taxes on hunting equipment, among other things, go directly towards conservation projects that preserve wildlife and lands. Historically, when hunting wasn't controlled, wild populations and lands were disappearing. Noticing this, sportsmen, conservationists, and government leaders joined together to create a long-term solution to save the remaining natural areas. The Pittman-Robertson Act was introduced in the 1930s. Now known as the Wildlife Restoration Act, it extended the firearms and ammunition tax, as well as legislated that all fees from hunting and fishing licenses could only be used for conservation programs administered by state fish and wildlife agencies and could not be used for anything else.
This money is what is responsible for, in Maine, for instance, the reintroduction of the wild turkey, the comeback of the moose population, growth in the deer population, waterfowl numbers that have been restored to where they used to be.
Because hunters and conservation generally go hand in hand, groups such as the Sportsmen's Alliance were formed to advocate these joint efforts.
We've been active in all of the major conservation efforts. We've helped to add 3 million acres of conservation land in the last decade in Maine. We've been very active in programs like Lands for Maine's Future and the Federal Forest Legacy Program. I'm on the advisory board that gives out that money. And we've even helped partner with Maine Audubon Society to create programs for conservation like the Maine Outdoor Heritage Fund.
And sportsmen's groups are not the only ones who endorse hunting as a positive thing for the environment. Many well-known conservation groups such as the Sierra Club and Nature Conservancy also approve of hunting. Deb Perkins of the Northern Forest Alliance says hunting is just another way to enjoy the outdoors.
Hunting is not something that we see as a threat or a problem to the resources of the Northern Forest. It's very much a part of the conservation ethic and very much a part of why we work to protect this area.
And in general, anyone who eats meat and even animal rights advocates should see hunting as a more natural and humane way of harvesting meat. Packaged meat from the grocery store most likely comes from an animal that spent its whole life in a stockyard, whereas a hunted animal ranged free all its life. And in Maine, the law states that game animals must not be wasted, and to waste, according to the IF&W, is to, quote, intentionally leave a wounded or killed animal in the field or the forest without making a reasonable effort to retrieve and render it for consumption or use, end quote. Hunting also regulates wildlife populations that, if left alone, could bring diseases and encroachment onto human habitats, as well as herd starvation and land decimation. Here in Augusta, the state capital of Maine, people can apply for and obtain their hunting licenses. There have been reports that the amount of hunters is on the decline. So what does this mean for the future of conservation?
What it means is that there's going to be fewer dollars available for managers to manage, enhance, protect wildlife species throughout the state.
It's not just up to IF&W or whatever state mandated agency there is. I think it's also up to the citizens and the general public to come together to support conservation.
And if new solutions for conservation funding aren't made quick enough, and the number of hunters still declining, even though this picture is disturbing, without hunting, this is the real picture that more and more wild lands could end up as. I'm Lisa Schroeder reporting from Maine.
If he starts charging, we gotta get out of here.